My guest today is known around the world for his stunning pictorial applique quilts featuring birds, animals, and nature. The closer you look, the more incredible they become. Every feather, every shadow, every detail is created with fabric and thread. And behind all that award-winning work is a funny, down-to-earth teacher who believes quilting should tell a story and make people feel something. Today, I'll have a chat with David M. Taylor. Welcome to the Quilter on Fire podcast. I'm Brandy Maslowski, and if there's one thing I've learned from hundreds of conversations with quilters, artists, entrepreneurs, and makers from around the world, it's this. There isn't one right way to build a creative life. Some of my guests found quilting as children, others discovered it later in life. Some are building businesses, some are winning awards, and some are simply making time to create between work, family, and everything else life throws in their way. What they all have in common is a willingness to stay curious, keep learning, and keep making. Each week, I bring you honest conversations, practical insights, inspiring stories, and the occasional lesson learned the hard way. So you can spend less time wondering what's possible and more time creating a life you love. Whether you're stitching in your studio, driving to work, walking the dog, or dreaming about your next quilt project, I'm so glad you're here. Let's light that creative fire together. Today, I'm chatting with award-winning quilt artist and teacher David M. Taylor. David has a signature style of pictorial applique that has earned him some of the quilting world's highest honors, including 2 International Quilt Association Master Awards for contemporary quilting, multiple Best of Show awards, and recognition from the American Quilter Society. His quilts hang in private collections around the world. His quilts are also known for their incredible realism, thoughtful composition, and meticulous craftsmanship. Today, he teaches internationally and has inspired thousands of quilters to look at fabric in a completely different way. David proves that fabric can do just about anything if you're willing to slow down, trust the process, and pay attention to the details. And a fun little tidbit, by the time this podcast airs, the event will be all said and done, but he is about to be a featured speaker and teacher at Quilt Canada in Winnipeg. So let's explore the story of David Taylor. David, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here. I have met you a few times at multiple shows. And most recently, I saw you at Quilting Arts TV, right?
Yes. I remember I was actually a replacement for someone on that show. So that was a spur of the moment, run down and do the taping. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was so impressed because every once in a while, something happens at Quilting Arts TV where a guest can't make it for some reason. And you stepped in like nobody's business and you had some great things that you brought to the table. You were talking about thread and fabric and all those foundational things, right?
Yes, I did, because I had to come up with a fast topic. But truly for me as a speaker, just give me a topic and I'll start talking. I've been doing this a long time.
You sure have. Okay, so let's go back to the very beginning. Where did creativity begin for you?
Probably when I was very young. I have 5 brothers and sisters.
5, okay.
5 brothers and sisters. And my mother loved crafting and she loved art. And so we didn't have a whole lot growing up, but she did get us craft supplies. You know, our favorite thing every year was a box of 64 crayons for coloring. We loved doing crafting. It was just part of our lives. And by the time I was 10 years old, I started on my mother's sewing machine. I don't think we were allowed to use it until we were at least 10 and knew how to thread it up and do all of that. But I took to that like a duck to water. I just was fascinated by the sewing machine. I loved sewing on it. I made my first Halloween costume when I was 10. And by the time I was 12, I was making all of my own clothes. So that was just ingrained in us as children to do crafts and arts and crafts.
Yeah, that is so great. So your mom inspired you. She gave you the tools you needed to start with stitch. So were there other people along the way in your youth that really shaped your creativity?
Well, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother, who was from Quebec, For my birthday one year, she gave me a little bag of little scraps of black and white fabrics, and I can
Oh.
still remember them. And she told me, she said, my mother says that you love fabric and you love sewing. And so I thought you would like these little scraps because I'm getting too old to do anything with them anymore. And you sew them together and it would make a quilt.
Aw.
And she did everything by hand stitching. And so I tried that as a kid, but I really loved that sewing machine. So I never finished it. And years later, I took the pattern that she had for all the little blocks and I made it larger because I thought
Oh.
it'd be easier if I do this in bigger pieces to do on the machine. So my grandmother and my mother were the inspirations to get me to have me fall in love with fabric.
Yeah.
I would save every scrap of fabric I could as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have a lot. My father died when we were young. By the time I was 14, my father died. So my mother raised 6 kids on her own. So we didn't have a lot. And if you wanted clothes, you had to make them.
Yeah.
So we always had fabric, and every little scrap would be saved for something. I loved my little scrap box. I don't know whatever happened to them. I don't have them anymore. I wish that I did. I'm sure they're quite dated, but I loved fabric. So as soon as I started earning money doing odd jobs, I went to the fabric store.
So lots of inspiration in your household as you grew up, sewing wise. So can you give us a look at the timeline? Was there an educational career path or something like that that led to quilting?
Nope.
No.
Not that led to quilting. I have led a very Forrest Gumpish life.
What does that mean, Forrest Gumpish?
You know, Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gumpish.
Forrest
Okay.
Gump.
Forrest Gump.
From the movie where things happen in your life and you just go down a different path.
Yeah.
That has been what my life was like. And, we moved a lot as children. My father was in the Navy, so I'm a Navy brat. So we moved a lot. And I've actually had 28 permanent addresses in my life. 28 homes. And I like that kind of lifestyle because wherever the wind blows, that's where I might end up. So I made clothes. I made all of my clothes, even up to the time when I was in business and had jobs. I could tailor suits. I made all of my clothes. I loved making clothes. But I dropped out of college after 3.5 years because I was bored. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And somebody offered me a job working at a print shop, a little copy center, print shop. So they wanted to pay me. So I took that job. And then from that job, I got into newspapers. This was back in the 1980s, mid 80s, when this new thing came out called a desktop computer.
Wow.
And there was a couple, they had a Jewish family newspaper.
Okay.
And so they asked if I wanted to be an apprentice and come to work from them. And I said, I'm not Jewish. I know nothing about computers and I know nothing about newspapers. And they said, we think you'll be great.
You're hired.
Truly. So I went to work for them and learned how to use the computer, and I learned all about newspapers, and I learned what it is to be Jewish. And so I say I'm Jewish by osmosis. From that led to another newspaper job, and then from there another newspaper job. And so I was into newspapers. And up until I started quilting, my goal in life was to win a Lifetime Achievement Award for front page newspaper design.
Oh.
But I left that job behind after I had started quilting.
Okay.
So that just happened completely by accident, like everything else in my life.
So was there a moment when you kind of realized, okay, quilting is my thing. I'm going to try to make a career out of this?
It was only because of my friend Madeline Vale. Now, I met Madeline Vale when I went to work at a Joann Fabrics, which is no longer around. So I think it's okay to say that. I could say a big box fabric store, but we know what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So I had walked into a Joann's one day to buy fabric, and they said, "Oh, would you like to work here?" you get a discount on your fabric.
Mhm.
So I took a part-time job. But the most important thing about that moment was that I met my friend Madeline.
Mhm.
And it was through her, through all of our ups and downs of our life, still my oldest friend. We've known each other for 40 years. Madeline started quilting. And she told me this, I think you would love this. I think this is something you should consider. And I'm like, I did that as a kid with my grandma's little fabric squares, and I never finished that quilt. It was only a quilt top forever and ever. And I'm like, I just don't think it's going to take. But Madeline started a quilting business. And so for that, because I was in newspapers and I worked in PR, I thought, you need to get some exposure for your business. So it started that our summer chamber music series in the town where we were living in Colorado, Steamboat Springs, Colorado. This was the Strings Music Festival. And they were looking for season artwork. And so I suggested to Madeline she make a quilt and donate it, and that would be the season artwork. And she said, I don't know about designing quilts. You'll have to help design it. I know how to make them, but I don't know how to. And I'm like, how hard can it be? Old ladies do the little quilting thing. How hard can it be to design a quilt?
Yeah.
So I designed the quilt and Madeline was making it. And then it got to the point where she said, you have got to learn to applique because the deadline's coming. We have got to get this done. And so she said, the first thing you have to do is buy a Bernina. I said, what's a Bernina? She said, it's a sewing machine. And so I learned how to applique and I learned how to pick all the wrong fabrics, according to Madeline. But we got that quilt done. And I consider that her quilt. It was called Rhythm Up the Yampa Valley when we finished it. And we donated it to the Strings Music Festival. And they auctioned it off in a silent auction. And that quilt, the final winning bid was $25,000 for our quilt.
Oh my.
So that's what opened my eyes up to the quilt world, truly, was I didn't know that there was this whole world of quilting out there with quilt shows and quilt groups. And so with one of the local groups, much like my life, the ladies at the Methodist Church in Steamboat said, you should come quilt with us. And I said, not a lady, not a Methodist, but I do quilt. And so I joined the Wednesday Methodist Quilters ladies to learn more about the whole quilting universe. So it was through them mostly that I learned what to do and what not to do and where the shows were and what magazines I should do and different types of quilting fabrics. And so at that point, my clothing life, making apparel work, ended, and the quilting world started with
kind of took
quilts.
over.
And it was them who prompted me to actually enter shows. And I remember saying, I don't think I'm good enough to enter a quilt show yet or a quilt competition. Right now, I'm just enjoying making them.
Yeah. So your first quilt was the collaboration with the friend and mentor, really. And then, so what was your first quilt that you made on your own?
Oh, right after that, I made a small art piece from a photograph that Matt and I had taken down in the Four Corners area of the state, where New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado meet. And it was some daisies growing out of some rocks. Just a small, simple piece.
Yeah.
But from that very first quilt, it made sense to me that the way that I draw my patterns would be by structure, not by color. Where most applique projects are color. You know, you need a red fabric, yellow fabric. I don't think that way, and my work doesn't look that way. I only use fabrics that have more than one color in them. And I think the fabrics can do the blending of the colors much better than I can. So that first piece that I made, the ladies at the church are like, you have to enter that in Houston. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I could do that. But I entered it in the county fair, and I think I won a ribbon at the fair, which was very exciting. But that first little art piece is the one that really, I sat down, I had to draw the pattern, figure it all out. And so that that was just a small piece that led me to then go, okay, now I need to do something bigger and better based on that small piece.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, well, let's move right into the design, the design process. So for your work, when inspiration strikes, like you see something in the world that inspires you or wherever it comes from, what does
right.
your process look like?
Well, it usually starts with a photograph. Now, not all of them, but most of them start with a photograph. And I can't explain what draws me to that specific photograph. I know a major reason has to be a challenge. There has to be something for me to figure out
Okay.
because I love doing puzzles. I've been doing jigsaw puzzles my whole life. From the time I remember the first jigsaw puzzle I ever got as a Christmas gift. I love puzzles, which kind of explains how the fabric thing works. Because with puzzles, you have to find the little piece that has all the colors you need, right? If you're doing a puzzle. And so you would tell yourself, oh, it needs to have a little bit of the sky and a little bit of a tree and a little bit of the land in it. So you have to look for that piece. That's the way I approach my quilt pieces in the applique. I have an applique piece. It has to have a little bit of blue with a little bit of orange and a little bit of green in it. So then I go find the fabric that has a little bit of blue, a little bit of green in it. If I don't have that fabric, then I get to go to the store and buy some more fabric that will have those colors in it. But in that photograph, that initial inspiration, there has to be a challenge. There has to be something that I have to figure out how am I going to accomplish this? How am I going to take that image and make it out of fabric?
Yeah.
And mostly the challenge is in learning to deal with the fabric. Like, how do you recreate texture out of fabric? How do I recreate snow out of fabric? How do I make that look like feathers? Yeah. There has to be a challenge.
Oh, yeah. I can see the challenge in every single one of your pieces. First of all, they're so intricate and detailed that they look like very difficult puzzles of fabric put together.
Yeah.
But I remember one of the bigger quilts that I have seen of your work. It was so big. It was like, I don't know, 90 or 100. It was Welcome Home. And that I saw it in person at a show. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, how did he create that folded, crumpled, natural looking quilt on that beautiful bench? I was astonished by, how you pulled it together. So what was the challenge in that quilt? Was it the quilt?
Making a quilt about a quilt.
Yeah. Was it having it look realistic?
Now, that was actually one of my students' photos, Margot Playbow. And Margot lives in Tennessee. And she was part of a small private group that I was teaching. That was years ago. And that photo is her personal photo. And it took me years to convince her to let me do it. She had wanted to do it as a project. And she asked my advice, how would you go about doing this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, the first thing, it has to be really large. And I work large because then the pieces are bigger. And I like capturing all that detail. So with that, the challenge was to recreate the quilt. That was actually her quilt design of a quilt that she had made and just had taken the photograph on her front porch. And that's all Margot's story to tell. I don't Margot's version of what the quilt means to her. It's just my journey of how I'm going to recreate that. And truly, the quilt in the photo was all pieced.
Yeah.
And so I thought the only way to get it to look crumpled and all folded up and put on that chair would be through applique. So my challenge was, I'm going to create a pieced quilt in perspective out of applique. And then all of the background, which is pictorial landscape, which would normally be applique, I'm going to piece that. So all the background will be pieced and the quilt will be applique.
Yeah.
And for the most part, that happened. In the end, I was going to piece the branches in the trees, but they look too straight and they look too perfect, and they shouldn't. They should look like they're growing and moving and crinkly and have bark on them. So in the end, I released myself from that command that it had to be pieced, and I actually hand appliqued all of the dozens and dozens and dozens of branches in that tree, and then did embroidery for the fine branches on the tree. The more detail in it, the more excited I get. And that project did start to finish was 2.5 years
Yeah.
of
Wow.
construction work on that. But I never get bored with it. And like I say, I never have a UFO.
Yeah.
Every
Well,
quilt that I do is a LTC.
yeah.
This long-term commitment.
Okay, good.
Um,
Well, and if you're listening right now to this podcast and you want to see what we're talking about, you can go to davidtaylorartquilts.com and check out the gallery. You'll find it there. It's called Welcome Home. So I pulled you out of the story. Let's go back to the story.
okay.
So what was your very first fine art quilt? You mentioned the small little flower quilt, but what was your first art quilt that you entered into one of the bigger shows?
That would be Sally at the window.
Okay, let's talk about that quilt right now then. What's the story behind it?
Well, the story behind that was I actually took a workshop with Hala Shatlin. I don't know if you know Hala. She does dye painted imagery.
Yeah.
I learned a couple things in that class. The first one was I'm not a dye painter, and I'm not a painter, and I'm not a dyer. You dye, I'll buy. I have a retail issue,
Yeah.
and I love buying fabric. So I took that to dye painting class. It was a 5-day class, but I realized that's not what I want to do. But the advice that I got from Hollis on my work was invaluable because Hollis advised me to start studying sunlight and shadow and the value of color. She's like, you to do pictorial work, you've got to understand sunlight and shadow.
Yeah.
And so, of course, being me, I'm like, well, what does she know? I know sunlight and shadow, blah, blah, blah. And then I went back and looked at my work and decided, yeah, Hollis was right. I really need to concentrate on sunlight and shadow. So my friend Kenny Proper is a black and white art photographer, and he had some photos that he was shooting on vacation. And, people show you their vacation photos, and I'm just leafing through his photos that he took, and I saw this black and white version of a woman who actually was our friend Sally Clausen. Sally's looking through a window into a building that was under construction, and just how Kenny captured that moment with the sun. It was in Mexico with the sun beating down on that building, and Sally in shadow, casting a shadow on I thought, this is the perfect opportunity to study sunlight and shadow.
Yeah.
Now, I only had that black and white 8x10 print as reference, and I had to imagine what all the colors were in that photo. So I had to start by collecting the colors that I wanted, and then finding all of those colored fabrics in every value on that value scale.
Wow.
And meticulously, that one is actually not applique. That has all been machine pieced together. So every little bit of the sashing on the windows and every window pane and all of those were all machine pieced together with mitered corners, with frames and within frames, and planning where every bit of shadow was and every bit of sunlight was going. So that was a long, long process in doing that, but it really helped me teach myself value and color with that project. And then shockingly was probably maybe my 10th quilt that I made, and I won my first master award for contemporary quilting at Houston, and then it went on to Paducah to win the best wall quilt.
Wow.
And so that quilt's the one that made me realize I do have something to offer as a potential instructor. And I actually quit my last job 4 years later and started teaching.
Yeah. Well, taking a look at that quilt in the gallery, it's incredible, the shadow, because every single window has it looks like it's actually a photograph because the shadows on the windows, the color choices between the building and the ground are just really good value differences. And the sidewalk even is just meticulous.
And that is all of the sidewalk, all of the tiles in the sidewalk. And there's 2 different styles going on in that sidewalk. They were all pieced together with Y seams. And the grid, of course, is in perspective. So the pieces off the right are smaller than the pieces off the left. So I had to draft all of that out and meticulously piece all of those tiles together.
It's astonishing to look at. And then right down to the shadow of Sally, leaning forward, looking through the window, you can see the shadow of her body and her dress, and it just works so well.
That's something I teach in my classes about sunlight and shadow and finding the value. Her dress in there, the fabric that I used is actually the back side of the fabric. And this was before digital prints became a thing. These are all screen prints. So if you have older screen printed fabric, the back side is what the color would look like if it's in direct sunlight. So I used the reverse side of the fabric for her dress in the sun, and then the front side of the fabric became the dress in the shadow. Wow. Because, of course, those colors would be a little richer. They're not being bleached out by the sun. Yeah. And so I've used the back sides of fabric all the time.
Yeah. Okay, so what parts of your quilting business are keeping you busiest right now?
Probably my teaching.
Yeah, traveling all over.
Traveling to do workshops, and I do guilds. I started teaching at guilds, and so I'll continue to do that. I love connecting with the students and showing them something they may not ever have seen before. But I do get a lot of satisfaction out of the 5-day workshops, extended workshops. And I do probably now 10 or 12 a year. Mm-hmm. That's a lot, because in those classes, all of the students are working on their own project. Mm-hmm. Or it's like a guild class, everyone's got the little pattern. Yeah. At the extended workshops, everyone has their own idea. And I can't help it. I'm thinking about all of their projects all of the time and what fabrics I have at home that I know would work perfect in there. Yeah. Because I want them to have the best possible workshop experience. So I'm living through all of their projects. So it is very exhausting. At the end of the day, I leave the classroom because I just need to get away from it for a bit.
So what I'm hearing, if someone's listening right now and they're like the program coordinator, something like that, what I'm hearing is you like to teach the longer form workshops, like 5 days at retreats and guilds, but you're not much for virtual or doing anything on teaching on Zoom or anything like that.
No, I don't. No, I can't touch their fabric.
Yeah, you like to be there in person. Okay, and you're coming up right away. You're teaching at Quilt Canada, and it will be all said and done by the time people hear this podcast. But what are you teaching there?
Oh, I think they picked a whole variety. I'm doing a hand applique, a machine applique, and a machine piecing class. Okay. So I do teach all of that because you can guess my work is very meticulous. Mm-hmm. So I do teach all those different techniques.
Okay, and we already talked about your quick, fast, last-minute appearance on Quilting Arts TV, but you've been on Quilting Arts TV in the past as well, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So that's always a lot of fun to see you on there. So people can go and check out Quilting Arts TV. If you have a membership or you want to see that, just search David Taylor's name and you'll find what he's taught in the past.
I think I've done 4 episodes.
Yeah. So fun. Yeah. It's always great to be invited there, isn't it? You could just get to feature
and I love Susan Brubaker now.
Yeah. She's such a sweetheart. Okay. So having a lot of fun traveling and teaching lately. Let's talk about your lectures a little bit. So you have a few lectures available. So what kind of topics do you like to hit with your lectures?
So my lectures are mostly a digital slideshow. And of course, you can tell I like to talk. So I have a story about each of those quilts. And through telling the story of the quilt, you also get a lot about the process that I use to make that quilt. Yeah. So I talk about that. I also have a lecture on judging called Who Am I to Judge? Yeah. Because years ago, I never thought that I would ever want to be a judge, to judge someone else's work, because I don't like when people judge my work. And then I did it once, and then it got rather addicting. And I like to talk about what, from my point of view, what I'm looking for as a judge and what people should know about judging. Mm-hmm. I think if you are making a quilt because you want to win a competition, that's the wrong reason to make that quilt.
Yeah.
You make that quilt because you love that quilt and you love the process. And if you get rewarded for it, well, that's just a little bonus. But
Yeah.
the reward should be in you completing your work and loving what you do.
Yeah. So your lectures are about who am I to judge, artistry through applique. And
That's
then you also have one about care and feeding of your fabric stash.
fabric stash, yes,
Tell us
because
about that one.
I have a huge stash of fabric. I think now I probably have 15,000 yards of fabric in my studio. And a lot of people don't know how to buy fabric or take care of their fabric. And so I have those specific, I don't want to call them rules, but those specific guidelines on how you should be taking care of your fabric. Even simple things like wherever my fabric stash is, I have to keep it out and open on open shelves.
Mhm.
I need to see my fabric at all times. I'm always in the studio, I'm always working in there.
Yeah.
So they always face north.
Oh.
My walls are my shelves for my fabric are always on a north facing wall so that they're not getting any of that sunlight coming in the windows. That protects them. Just simple things like that. And I realize some people in your home, you don't have a wall that faces north.
Yeah.
But just that's what I do with mine. If I put them all in bins with lids and I couldn't see my fabric, well, that would make me sad.
Yeah.
I need to have it out where I can pet it and touch it and refold it. And a lot of times you get inspiration just from a fabric you found that you bought 5 years ago, and you go, oh, that's what that was for.
Yeah.
A new project comes out.
Well, I could see how that would be a really unique and fun lecture. So I'm sure that people love to hire you for that one. That sounds like a lot of fun. Okay, so I want to just mention the website here right now. So davidtaylorartquilts.com. If you're listening, this is where you'll find the About page with David's story, his shop. There's all kinds of his favorite tools and products in the shop, plus the patterns, an incredible gallery of his work as well. So all the quilts we're talking about today, you can find them in the gallery. I really encourage you to grab a cup of tea and peruse the patterns in gallery. If you love hand applique and flowers, go there now. I'm telling you, it's a wonderful selection of patterns, and you will love the gallery of art quilts. So let's touch on those patterns for a minute, because they are a glorious collection of tiny little applique, right?
They are.
Yeah.
Some have more pieces than others, but for me, it's all in the detail.
Yeah.
In order to get detail, you need lots of pieces. And I know that some people look at that pattern, oh, there's 70 pieces in there. I'm going to applique 70 pieces. Yes, but they're small. So these should maybe take you a minute.
Yeah.
To do your stitching. So if you just think, oh, in 70 minutes, I'll be done with that pattern.
Yeah.
I think it's just the quantity of the work. Now, like I've done quilts that have thousands and thousands of pieces in them. I love applique. I love doing it. I love all the little bit. The more pieces you have, the happier I am. If they go fast, what's the point of doing them?
Yeah.
I'm not a make a project in a day person.
No.
Make a project.
Okay. So if you love hand applique and flowers, go check that out for sure. Now, David, we've already talked about a really memorable quilt, Sally at the Window. Let's talk about community now. So what does community mean to you, and how is that infused into your business?
In the quilting community?
Yeah. Do you do a live once in a while, or do you have a newsletter, or is there anything you do that really connects you to your community with your guilds or anything like that?
No, I belong to my local guild, and back in the early days when I joined the guild in Steamboat Springs where I was living, you sit still at a meeting long enough and you're going to be on a committee. So I was the newsletter chairperson, and so I like doing the newsletter, having been in newspapers.
Yeah.
But now, as far as my life, I'm too busy. I would rather be out there teaching.
Yeah.
And I, like I said, I don't do the Zoom. I don't do virtual because I can't connect with people. And I'm much better live, and I'm much better in a classroom where I can help you, with stitching, with knowing showing needle sizes and thread sizes and what the fabric has the potential to do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really good at. So the virtual thing, I'm just not there.
Yeah.
I had hired somebody years ago to be my Facebook person and post as me, but it never sounded like me. So I do have a Facebook page. I have an Instagram page. Nothing's been put on it for years.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of embarrassed by that. I wish I was more disciplined to do that. But I'm just not. So
yeah, it's okay. I'm really
hopefully people find me on my website and they find me from being I still teach at major shows and they'll find me that way. But I am too busy working then to sit in front of that computer.
Yeah, it's okay to not be a part of the social media frenzy. Sometimes you just need to be yourself in your studio and do your own thing, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So we're going to take a quick break right now. And then when we come back, we're going to talk all about David's studio space, some more of the quilts, of course, and what's coming soon. We'll be right back. Have you ever heard me announce something on the podcast and thought, wait, how did everyone else know about this but me? Here's the secret. The people on my newsletter hear about everything first. Every Tuesday, they get a preview of the newest Quilter on Fire podcast episode before it lands in their podcast app. Every Friday, they get my weekly roundup with the latest tools, tips, and tricks, where I'm off to next in the world, my latest YouTube video, and things that caught my attention in the quilting world. And if you're interested in quilt travel, this is the big one. Newsletter subscribers are the first to hear about international trips. My Japan tour filled in less than 2 weeks, and I have more incredible destinations in the works. When those trips are announced, newsletter subscribers get the news first. So if you don't want to miss a podcast, a travel opportunity, or something exciting happening in the Quilter on Fire community, get yourself on the list today. It's easy. Just head to quilteronfire.com, scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, enter your email address, and you're in. Join thousands of quilters who are already getting the inside scoop. That's quilteronfire.com. Scroll to the bottom, sign up, and I'll see you in your inbox. And we are back with David M. Taylor. So, David, what does your studio space say about you?
That I'm very organized. You know, I'm not very organized in my computer life, but I'm very organized in my studio. And, you know, all of my fabric is all folded to the exact same size. It's something I don't understand about other people's studios that I visit, and every piece of fabric is folded differently. Or when you're at the quilt shop and you're buying fabric and the person cutting it folds every piece differently. Like, I just stop. Let me do it. Let me do it. I will fold it for me, because I've been folding my fabric the same way since I was a child. And my fabric has to fit on the shelves very neatly. And they're all in color order, except the really good ones. And sometimes those are by line, where I bought a whole line of something, and I need them all organized together. But everything in my studio gets put away when you're done using it. That's a lesson from my mother and my grandmother.
Okay.
Put it away when you're done using it. Put it back the way that you found it. Still, when I teach a class somewhere and I rearrange the room, I put it back the way that I found it. There's a place for everything, and everything has a place. So my studio is very organized.
Well,
except
what?
when I'm working.
Oh, okay.
And I'm in that design process. When I'm choosing fabrics, it's kind of like your 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. All the pieces are on the table, and you got to put them all together. Yeah. All of my fabric is all over the studio, covering every surface, and on the floor, and on the ironing board, and on the 2 work tables. Yeah. Because I need all of that color surrounding me, and do not clean it up until the project is completed. Yeah. And so if it's a 3-month project, that studio is messy for those 3 months. And then when it's all done and all cut out, then I clean the whole studio, and everything gets folded back the same way, and it goes back to the shelves. No. So when you look at my studio, you go, ooh, you have some issues. And I do. As one of my students said recently, it was very funny. She said, "You don't have a few issues. You have an entire subscription on automatic renewal." And I understand that.
That's funny. Oh, that's sweet. Well, it sounds like you have a good organizational process and you still allow yourself the free creative play where you can just go crazy. Yeah, that's good.
Briefly, yeah.
Okay. And what brings you the most joy creatively? What's your favorite? What's your jam?
Buying fabric. It's the fabric is my joy. And I don't know why. And truly, I don't know how I got it. I'm sure there's something if I went to therapy from my childhood with my mother and loving fabric. I cannot remember a day in my life where fabric was not involved.
Oh.
Where I wasn't even thinking, I was thinking about it or buying it always, or a project I could do or a craft I could do. It's always been a part of my life is fabric. So it is kind of fitting that this is what ended up being my life.
Yeah.
Is now working in textiles. And I get a thrill out of them. And every time I can see a new quilt shop, I have to go in and I have to buy something.
Well, I'm getting the idea that you're quite meticulous about how you store your fabric and care for it. And you even have lectures and stuff on that. But this question just popped into my head. When you're using your fabric and cutting into it and you don't have the full pieces left that you can fold perfectly, how do you manage your scrap situation?
I don't save scraps.
What? What do you do with them?
I throw them away.
Oh no!
If it's too small to be folded up, it just goes away. I'll buy more. There'll always be more to buy, and I know people are horrified by that. And my regular students, who I teach year after year, say, "Oh, save those scraps. Just save them for us." Why? Just buy more fabric. I'm just not a scrap saver. Now, my fat quarter, I have a separate rack for my fat quarters. And it's an old media rack that's on a, like a Lazy Susan. It swivels. It sits in the middle of the room so it doesn't take up wall space. And it holds, now I forgot how many, 800 fat quarters, 200 fat quarters on each side.
Yeah.
So fat quarter size is okay, a little bit smaller, as long as I can fold it and stick it on a shelf in color order.
Okay.
So they're folded a different way than the full yardage. But even if it's a beautiful yardage and I've cut holes all out in it, I can still fold it up.
Yeah, that's true.
Size, and they'll sit in there. It's just when someone comes over to look through the stash to borrow a fabric, they pull it out and they open it up and go, "Never mind."
It's all got holes in it.
It's very blessed. It's quite holy. Mm.
Okay, so what's the best thing you do to care for yourself?
To care for myself?
Yeah, self-care. What do you do for self-care every week, every day?
Nothing.
Nothing? Do you need to add some self-care into your routine?
Well, I have a team of doctors keeping me alive. The older I get, every time you go for a checkup, they find something new wrong with you. Like, I have a doctor's appointment this afternoon. Just in my life situation, I have to live near a hospital. It's just my reality that I go. And so I have a team of people looking after me for that.
Yeah.
There is not really no, buying fabric makes me happy. So
that's your form of self-care.
I try to find joy every day. Mm-hmm. I find joy every day. My mother never found joy every day, and it makes me sad. She has passed away last year. That she didn't have that joy. And everyone I meet, I ask them, where's your joy? What do you find to make you happy every day? Mm-hmm. Every day I can find a little bit of a joy, whether it's a bird at the window or a bunny in my yard or a new piece of fabric that I discovered. You have to find joy in all the simple things.
That sounds good. Okay, so this is the feature of the podcast. We are going to talk about the quilts. We've already talked about that beautiful Sally at the window quilt. So let's talk about a few more. So let's start with Rhythm of the Yampa Valley. Tell me about that one.
Oh, that was the first one that Madeline and I made.
So okay. So that's the one you made together, right?
Instrumental in me discovering the quilting world. But I still consider that Madeline's
Yeah.
quilt. And
Okay.
unfortunately, she just retired, or because you could have bought that pattern on her website. So that was our
Okay,
first.
so that was the first one you discussed earlier. What about I Ain't No Spring Chicken?
Oh, that's one of my favorites. And that made me sad when I sold it because usually my work sells right away.
Yeah.
So I never really got to live with that quilt. I finished it up. It went to the Chicago show and it won Best of Show. And from there, it went into, I was having a solo exhibit. So it went right off to the Rocky Mountain Quilt Museum. And then that show then transferred over to Provence. And I got to have my solo exhibit 2008 in the south of France, which was very nice.
Yeah.
But it never came back. It sold while it was hanging over there. And I just loved that quilt. It started to be a quilt about that chicken.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a quilt about the barn wood.
I know. That's what I was going to say. I was like, I just can't get over the detail in the wood. It like astonishing.
It was so much fun. It was, that one was right before, no, right after Sally at the window, right after Sally at the window.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that I taught myself about color and light and shadow and value and fabric, then I applied that to that barnwood in I Ain't No Spring Chicken. Yeah. And I realized I could use any color fabric in my stash.
Yeah.
As long as the texture was right and the value was right. Yeah. And so if you really look at that wood, you will see there are oranges and golds and browns and greens and blues and purple fabrics in that wood, but the texture is right and the value is right.
Yeah. I'm telling you right now, if you're listening, you need to go to the gallery and look at the quilts while we're chatting about them, because, I mean, just the use of white. I mean, the chicken, like, it's hard to do that, isn't it? To have a body of varying values of white. It's got to be difficult.
So now, all these years later, that is frowned upon in my workshops, is to not bring white and not bring black. And try not to use gray.
Yeah.
Because color, changing that color, and you'll see that when we talk about Beneath My Wing, which was the quilt that I made about the swans.
Yeah.
In that quilt, there's only one little piece of white fabric. None of those other fabrics are white. Oh. And it astounds people when they look at it to go, no, surely they're white swans. Surely there are white fabrics in there.
Yeah.
No, they're not. Most of them are the back sides of fabrics.
Yeah. So let's talk about that one a little bit more now. So there's a good story behind that one, right? The audience loved that one a lot, right?
It was, yes. And it won my second Master Award at Houston, which I wasn't expecting that quilt to win that, but I was very, very grateful that it did. But that was a difficult quilt for me, in that I was working on that when I discovered I had a malfunctioning heart valve that I'd had my whole life and didn't know about. But symptoms that I'd had for years, I thought that everybody's heart did that and was normal. And they said, no. My friend Kim, who's my assistant and my muse and one of my dearest friends, Kimmy said, who's the nurse, you need to go have that checked out. And if you make the appointment, I'm going to. And so I went, and I was told, you have heart surgery now or you're going to die. These are your two options. Wow. And I was right in the middle of creating Beneath My Wing, which is about a mother swan and a baby swan. So there's a whole therapy session in there.
Yeah.
So I felt rushed getting that done, just in case I didn't make it off the operating table. And so I rushed making that quilt. So it has different memories for me than for the viewer. Apparently it's everyone's favorite quilt, and it did appear in a lot of different magazines, got a lot of exposure. Yeah. It was one of those quilts that I was working on that actually sold before I finished it, because the buyer knew my work, and she's like, I want this. I want this when it's done. And so that happens to me a lot. And so I just take an intent to purchase agreement that we do. And then if you like it when it's done, you can still buy it. If not, then it'll go to somebody else.
Yeah.
So it was, every time I look at it, I have the memories of that talk where you have heart surgery or you're going to die. And so those are my memories about it. But it was a nice moment that I did win a major award.
Yeah, of course.
Went on to the Paducah and different shows.
Well, and it's the kind of quilt that tugs at the heartstrings just by looking at it. You know that it's, parent and child of,
Exactly.
animals, but still, it's like, oh, under the wing. So sweet. Okay, let's talk about Maynard.
The Maynard quilt is one of my most popular quilts.
Yeah.
And it's not about the bulldog's backside. What it's about is the quiet of a whiteout. And a lot of people don't know what a whiteout day is, but a whiteout day is when it's snowing and it's daytime and the whole world turns white. And what I loved about what Hillary captured in that photo, my friend Hillary Spillane, was the quiet that it gets when it's in that whiteout situation. And that's what drew me into that photo was Maynard's her dog. You can tell that there was a noise, a sound somewhere off in the field. And so just the way his body is cocked a little bit to the left, like he's trying to get a better view to try to see what's out in the distance. I just love the stillness and the quiet of that image. And so my goal in that was to create a whiteout where I'm only going to use one white piece of fabric. What a lot of people don't know who haven't seen the quilt in person is that quilt is 5 feet wide and 7 feet tall. It is a life-size bulldog's butt. So with that white, being a pictorial applique artist, there's the background and the foreground both had to be the same one white piece of fabric that was going to be uncut. And so in order to get Maynard's little feet and the fence posts down into the snow, I actually had to slit the backing very carefully, tuck the applique ends of the applique seam allowances down into the snow, and then needle turn a little eighth of an inch or less of the fabric over the ankle. So his legs and the fence posts actually did go into the snow. So it was great that I had a problem and had to solve that issue. Now, the next problem that came up was then the dark fabrics of the fence post and Maynard's ankles were then shadowing through that white fabric so you could see the seam allowances. So I had to solve that problem. So what I did was create shadows in the snow with the linings to hide the shadowing of the dark applique.
Wow.
And actually teach that in a class as well.
Yeah, I love how you solve the problems as you go and you take them on as challenges. And the astonishing thing about this quilt is that it looks like there's a path, a trodden path along that fence, like the snow, the texture. You've got this perfect visual depth, like the fence gets smaller as you go into the distance, and it looks like a path that he maybe has been running back and forth. You can see the variations in the snow. It's not just one blank white slate, Yeah.
A lot of that is all that texture is created with the quilting.
Yeah.
And people panic when you go, I'm going to throw in green thread and pink thread and ivory thread and purple thread and blue thread to create that snow. And then the barbed wire helps with that perspective because that was all hand embroidery. Yeah. So little single strand stem stitch in the distance. And then as it came up, the ones in the very foreground, those were actually applique because they were heavy enough at that point. So it's just varying widths of stem stitch to create that false perspective.
Well, and it was a really good idea for you to use the most adorable thing on earth, which is the butt of a dog, to draw people in. And then when they come closer, it's like, this is very difficult. And this is very well achieved. So that's awesome. So it brings people in for a closer look and then they see all the detail, right?
That's exactly what I want people to do with my work.
Let's talk about another one. It's called Did You Wash Your Beak?
I believe, and I know my work better than anyone, that is the best piece that I ever made.
Aww.
I love that little piece. I made that right before Beneath My Wing. So it's another thing with a mother and a baby bird.
Yeah.
But I think everything that I had been trying to achieve in the years preceding, which was about 12 years of work,
Yeah.
happened with those birds, in that when you look at it, you don't know how they were created. Is that painted? What is it?
Mhm.
Is that mother bird created? And she is actually made from little bits of fabric, but I got them to blend perfectly. I'm very proud of that piece of how all of her feathers are coming together. And it's all just little bits of carefully chosen fabrics on her. And everything that I've been trying to do happened in that quilt, with both the mother and the baby, of finding just the right fabric to do the job, so that the viewer has to get up and look and go, I don't know how you made that.
Yeah.
And I would like to say, I don't know if we've said it yet, all of my work is just fabric. I do not paint on the fabric. I don't colored pencil. There's no artificial embellishing on my fabric. It is just finding the right piece of fabric to do the job.
Yeah, I mean, like if you look at the eyes, that's incredible. And if you look at the beak of the baby, wide open mouth, like it's incredible.
That was actually taken from a panel of fall trees with the oranges and the golds and the stuff. And I just cut it carefully out of the leaves on the trees to get that perfect color on that beak. I usually remember every fabric that I used for I love fabric. That's what his beak came out of.
So let's talk for a second about raw edge versus needle turn applique. So I feel like there's not an ounce of raw edge in anything you do. Is that true?
No. No, there's no raw edge. There's no glue. There's no fusing. And I don't do needle turn. I mean, I do needle turn some things, but for the most part, my work is 99% pre-turned edge, because I need to see what the pieces are going to look like as I'm working with them. So in my process, every piece is cut out. The edges are turned, only the edges that need to be, because I'm doing pictorial work. So as you come forward to the foreground, that's how they should be layered.
Yeah.
So the edges need to be turned, because I do not start stitching until every piece has been determined and every piece is where it needs to be. Doesn't matter if there's 1,000 pieces in the quilt, nothing gets stitched together or down until every piece is chosen.
Wow.
Because with that design process, that takes months. Usually takes me about 12 weeks on a small project to cut all those fabrics.
Yeah.
So then when it gets to the construction part of doing the actual stitching, I shouldn't be worried about design at that point or whether or not I have the right fabric. I just trust that they're right, and I can just spend the time stitching them down in place.
Yeah.
More months of that work.
I love it. Well, I really encourage you to look at all these quilts. We have one more to talk about, and it's called Welcome Home. So tell us about that one. Oh, we talked about that one already. Never mind.
That's the point swing quilt.
We talked about that one.
Name. It went through several name changes, but when I worked on that, the pandemic happened. Everybody was under lockdown. So it was ready to go to shows. I was going to have it ready to go in 2020. And then the world shut down. And as we all know, all the quilt shows were canceled. And so that quilt sat in my studio, what I think was a masterpiece of work, sat there. And so when I finally got to put it in a show in 2020, that's where the title came from. Welcome home. Because now we're all back at our quilt shows where we love to be and seeing everybody.
Yeah. Okay. So since we already talked about the story behind that one, I want to talk a little bit about an extra question I'm adding in here about the titles, because your titles are so wonderful. Welcome Home is very suiting, of course, because of the pandemic. Did you wash your beak? I mean, that is such a great title, because this is a human thing that we do. Did you wash your hands? And it's just so whimsical and perfect.
I can't take credit for that one.
Tell me who named that one.
One of my students, Anne-Marie, I believe, when I was down at Quilting in the Desert or Quilting in the Pines in Arizona, and I was showing that as a work in progress. My title, are you ready? Was called Feed Me.
Feed Me.
Because I was looking at it from the baby bird. And I think it was Anne Marie who shouted, she's like, no, did you wash your beak? And
So
the
good.
entire class erupted into laughter. And I'm like, oh, that's really good.
Oh,
And
that's
I love my titles. So thank you for asking that.
yeah. Oh,
I,
your titles for everything are so wonderful and whimsical. Like
from
even
my
just
newspaper background,
yeah, even
because
just Sir Francis. I mean, it's so cute,
I
right?
was a front page newspaper designer, and I won best headline writing for
Oh,
many, many years. It was always my category to win. I love writing headlines where you have to take the whole story and put it in one sentence. And
yeah.
so I think that's where that skill came from in my newspaper background of finding just the right title for my work. And I'm very proud of my titles. They
Oh,
change
there's
sometimes, but I think they're, but I'm really jealous. I didn't think of Did You Wash Your Beak?
well, there's another really cute one. Well, it's okay to change titles once in a while, especially if a student comes up with something amazing, right? Um,
Uh-huh.
I love the one Little Stinker. I think that's pretty adorable.
Oh, that's because his name is Tinker. He was a goat and he had a twin brother named Tucker.
Yeah,
And so that was my photo that I took out on my friend Cheryl's farm with
yeah.
Tinker and Tucker. So little Tinker just turned into Little Stinker. So
Yeah, there's so many great titles. I encourage you.
awesome.
Yeah, I encourage you to go look at all the titles. Like I Ain't No Spring Chicken was great as well. And instead of like sort of coming up with the seasons or blah blah blah, you came up with A Year Under the Aspen. It's just a different way of saying it, and it's just such a good little take on a 4-season sort of portrayal of a tree, right? So anyway, that's a lot of fun. I really think your titles are great. So let's talk a little bit about, I don't know, big news coming soon. So you have a little bit of a snippet of something happening. Tell me a little bit about it.
Ooh, yes. I will preface this by saying back in 2005, after Sally at the Window made a big splash, I was approached by a publisher to do a book.
Mm-hmm.
And that book was going to come out by like 2008. And I'm very lazy. And it didn't happen. And I'm so glad that it did because now I feel after all these years of teaching, I've been teaching 15 years, 16 years.
Yeah.
Now I have something to offer. So I'm glad that they reapproached me about doing a book. And I said, you have to give me a deadline. So, and then I'll get this done.
Yeah.
So there is going to be a book coming out 2027 about my pictorial applique process. And of course, stories about all the quilts. And so we're going to go through and select some of my quilts and I'll tell a story. And through reading those stories, hopefully you will get information about my process from why I chose that, the techniques that I used to do that, and so on and so on. And then a few little pullouts with specific lessons of what I'm doing. But it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, that's very exciting.
And my deadline is coming up, but it's going to happen. So I'm very happy that I'm finally getting a book.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, we'll look forward to seeing that come out in the future. And I guess people can keep an eye on your website just because it'll probably be front and center there when it does come out. Okay. So let's get into the lightning round. It's time for the lightning round, Robin. It's fast and fun. Are you ready?
Yes. Do I win a prize if I get a prize?
No, you just get to spend a few minutes with me.
Oh, perfect.
That's the prize. Okay. Here we go. What is your favorite tool or notion?
My favorite tool is a thing called a finger stiletto. It's actually called a trolley needle made by a company called Yarn Works out of Wisconsin. And, with my arthritis, that it's hard for me to grip things like most of my fingers don't bend. So you don't really need that to use the finger stiletto, that ailment, but I've always used it. My friend Madeline introduced me to that. It's just a little thing that goes on the end of your finger so you don't have to grip it.
Yeah.
And it stays on there and it helps me turning my edges so that it keeps your finger away from the hot iron, which is a good thing for me.
Yeah.
So you use that to turn your edge and you press with it. It's a great gadget available on my website.
Okay. And do you turn your edges around freezer paper or something?
Yes, I do freezer paper applique.
Okay. Okay. So do you have any kind of annual creative escape?
No. I find my creativity, I think, in my students. and working with them on their projects. And a lot of times I will steal their image and do it for myself.
With permission.
So every fall, I started a company called New England Quilt Seminars.
Yes.
And we hire other instructors to come in, and I teach there every year, sometimes twice a year when we have our spring edition. Just being with my regular students and working with them on their projects, that's I love doing that. I love working with them. I love it when a student has that aha moment and they see a fabric or they put something in place and then it all falls together. And so I love being part of that process for them.
Okay, let's dive into New England Quilt Seminars right after the lightning round robin, because I want to know more about that. So let's finish the last couple questions and then we'll get right into that. What is a skill you'd still love to learn?
Hand quilting.
Okay.
I don't know how to hand quilt.
Oh,
I don't know how to hand quilt. And I don't know if my fingers will do it, but I want to learn it. Now, I'm mostly self-taught other than the ladies at the church and my friend Madeline, who tell me how to do things, and then I find my own way there. I haven't mastered hand quilting, but I want to learn. And that is, I have some projects that are all hand applique, and I would like to hand quilt them. And they're just for me. They're not to go out in the world. Nobody needs to know about them, but I would like to be able to do it. So that's a skill I have to do.
So right now, all your pieces are machine quilted.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. What's your proudest accomplishment?
Do I have one? For me, it would be, as we talked about, Did You Wash Your Beak? Where I just love the fact that I managed to get that mother bird to look the way that I saw her in my mind using only fabric. I don't need a major award. I don't need any of that. I love doing what I do, and I love it when a little thing comes together like that bird, that I actually did it right.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that little quilt.
The feathers are incredible. And the worm is amazing too. Everything about it is amazing.
And he went through several iterations because sometimes you get it done and I look at it and I'm like, nope, those colors just aren't right. Like the tennis ball on my German Shepherd quilt that I did called Too Tired to Play. The 17 tennis balls were cut for that because I couldn't find the right fabric, the one that looked wet enough and grimy enough, like that dog's been chewing on that ball for all those years. It was hard to find a fabric that looked like that. 17 tennis balls were cut because I don't stop until it's right.
Yeah, I love that quilt. Okay, and what is the best advice you've ever received?
I don't know. I rarely listen to anyone.
I don't listen to anybody.
There was a moment in my life, and I had a particularly troubling workshop, and it really saddens me when someone has paid to take my workshop and they were unhappy in there. Now, it could be, I could have 23 happy students and one that left unhappy, and I don't know how to solve that. But I had someone come up to me right after that and said, this is what you're supposed to be doing. So don't stop teaching. Because I was going to quit. That was one of my first classes and go, nope, I'm going back to be a graphic designer. I can't do this. Just one person who I didn't know just told me at the right moment that I should keep doing this.
Yeah.
And here I am 16 years later, still teaching.
Yeah, you were exactly where you needed to be. Well, that's good. Okay, well, thank you for braving the lightning round, Robin. That was fun.
Oh, that was very stressful.
No. Okay, I want to talk about these New England. So tell me all about this event. So you created it yourself?
I did, and it's modeled after all other quilt retreats that you go for 5 days. But when I started teaching full time, and I would go teach for other people at these retreats. And I thought, I should organize one myself, but where would I do it at? And I remembered a class that I took with Hollis Chatelain on color. And she was teaching a color class in the White Mountains of New Hampshire at this little inn. And because I was born in New Hampshire and I go back every year to visit my aunt and see the family, that I remembered that inn and I looked it up because it was such a nice little place. And so I organized my own event, and we did it. And then every year after that, I kept going back. But we'd go back in September, and there was no one else at the inn.
Hmm.
Well, it's their off season because they're a ski resort. And so just talking to the general manager, I said, well, why is there no one else here? Well, because we're not that busy. And I said, would you like me to fill the place with quilters? Because I know a lot of instructors and you have classrooms. And she said, well, yeah, I'm not going to turn down business. And so in 2020, really bad year to do a major event. My assistant and friend Kimmy and I organized our New England quilt seminars. Our first year, 2020, we had sold out every class. And then the world shut down.
Oh.
So not a very auspicious beginning, but we didn't give up. And so we've been doing that every September at the small inn, the Valley Inn in Waterville Valley, New Hampshire. And we get all my friends in the quilting community, teachers to come.
Yeah.
This year we are 4 classes over 3 weeks. We went from 1 week to now we're 3 weeks.
Wow.
4 instructors in 4 different classrooms. And so it keeps growing. Now, as of this time, those classes are still pretty much sold out.
Yeah.
But again, check my website or check the New England Quilt Seminars.com website because we're getting ready to release our classes for 2027.
Okay.
And beyond after that.
Okay, so that happens in the fall every year in September, mid-September.
End of September, beginning of October.
Okay.
So the leaves are starting to change. Sometimes it's green, sometimes they have their color, sometimes it's almost peak leaf season. And one time it snowed, but we don't talk about that one. So we never know what the weather's going to be, but it is in a nice, quiet little ski resort in the White Mountains of New Hampshire.
Oh, that sounds great. So you can book a week or you can book more? You can book anything?
Well, if you want to take more than one. Each workshop is a week-long workshop.
Okay.
So you sign up for one instructor. Now, we do have people that will stay multiple weeks seeing them, but yeah.
Sounds great. It could be a nice little creative escape. Okay. So we've mentioned the websites davidtaylorartquilts.com and you just mentioned newenglandquiltseminars.com.
Right.
Okay. So that's where we can go. And then on Instagram, you're HP Quilter, right? You don't mention it.
I think I am. HP Quilter.
Yeah, I found you. You're HP Quilter. We saw the dog there. We saw there's little snippets of your life there, really. And you might not be posting all the time, but it was Too Tired to Play is up on there, I saw. That's just adorable. And
maybe I'll go post on it now.
Yeah, go post something.
I finished the new quilt called Say Cheese.
Oh, okay.
But he's not up on the website yet, but
okay. So if you want to see that,
keep people in suspense, but I'll probably put him on the Instagram then.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so now as we wrap up, David, what do you want people to take away most from our conversation today?
Go buy more fabric.
Go buy more fabric. From you? You don't sell fabric.
No, just in general. Please support your local quilt shops.
Yeah.
Because we need them. And so, just create and love what you do. That's what I find. Love what you do.
Yeah, that's great advice.
If you're not loving it and you find it stressful, then find another hobby. Truly. Truly. Maybe you're just in the wrong hobby.
Yeah.
And you just love what you do. It doesn't matter what a judge thinks or what anyone else thinks of your work. There is no wrong in craft. There is no wrong. People who tell you are doing something wrong, they just don't know. You're doing it differently.
Yeah.
So just keep up with your hobby, because if I stopped every time somebody told me I was doing something wrong, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere.
Yeah. And boy, have you ever blossomed, right? Okay. Well, wonderful. Now, I'm so happy to have had you on the show, David. So thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I was a little nervous, but I think I did okay.
You did a fabulous job. This has been so much fun.
No, thank you.
Okay, so that was my show with David Taylor. What delights me about David is that his quilts look so serious and masterful from across the room, but when you spend time with him as a person, you discover he's incredibly funny, quick-witted, doesn't take himself nearly as seriously as his awards might suggest. What I also admire about David is his commitment to craftsmanship. He starts something and finishes, no matter how long it takes. These quilts aren't rushed. Some take months and even years to complete, and every piece of fabric is carefully chosen to create light, texture, and movement. That's a level of patience and dedication I can really appreciate. I also love that after a successful career in newspaper cover design and that kind of thing, he followed a completely different path to build a life around teaching and sharing what he loves. And today, I loved sharing the story of David M. Taylor with you. Just give me 30 seconds of your time. 2 things I want to say. The first thing is a huge thank you for listening and tuning into the show week after week. It means the world to me and my team, which consists of James, my podcast producer, DG, my virtual assistant, and Luna, my chocolate lab. This podcast really is a dream that started with the notion of surrounding myself with people who lift me up, but it has turned into so much more than that. We absolutely couldn't have imagined becoming an award-winning podcast. But secondly, we feel like we're only just getting started. And if you enjoy what we do here, please go to your favorite social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or even YouTube, and follow Quilter on Fire. It's one small thing you can do for free to support this show. And here's a promise I'm going to make to you. I'll do everything in my power to make this the best show I can, just for you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to the Quilter on Fire podcast. Remember to rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts. Your support helps me reach more quilters just like you, striving for that perfect quilty lifestyle. Click on those 5 stars and share what you loved most about today's episode. Don't forget to hit the follow button if you haven't already. With new episodes dropping weekly, you won't want to miss out on the inspiring stories and tips we have in store. Until next time, dream big and have fun in the studio with the Quilter on Fire.